Hi and happy Sunday. It is Jackie Powell of the Nine Basketball reporting live from Las Vegas following Game 2 of the WNBA Finals, where the Aces defeated the Mercury 91-78 in a game that the Aces were in control of for 3 out of 4 of the quarters. A reminder, for every WNBA Finals game, I will be your guide here on the Nine Sports' YouTube channel, taking you through what the takeaways are from the finals, not only on the court, but off the court as well. Today will be mostly on the court, but I will attach the link to our first episode in the show notes in case you missed how the Aces won Game 1 and also what was said pre-game from WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. But today, coming off of Game 2, I'm joined here by Alissa Hirsh of the Chicago Sun-Times, who covers the W and the Sky over there, but she also previously covered the Sky here at the Nine Basketball. Alissa, welcome to our second episode in the series. It is so great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I miss you guys, so it's nice to be back.
We miss you too. So, again, we're going to have two main segments and then a little bit of a send-off where we preview Game 3. But first, we're going to talk about how the Aces won this pretty decisively. And I will discuss how I believe there has been some considerable evolution from Becky Hammon as a head coach in this league. And later, we're going to break down what went wrong for the Mercury. And sort of Alissa will really take us into the vibes of what their press conferences were like, because it was quite a very specific feeling in there. And then to close out, we will look ahead to Game 3 and focus on the Mercury and what they need to do to respond and what ways we think they will. All right, let's rock. Let's get into how the Aces really dominated most of this game. Alissa, what stood out to you about this win from Las Vegas?
Jackie Young. Did you notice Jackie? I think she had 21 points in the third quarter alone. But you're also named Jackie, and because of that, I do want to ask you, how much better do you think Jackie has gotten?
I mean, I think it's been pretty dramatic. And
like this year?
Oh, this year rather than over time.
Yeah.
I mean, the playmaking for me, I don't think you saw it as much in this game, but there have been games throughout this season where she's putting up a double-double in points and assists.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about how Chelsea Gray is known as the point god or whatever, but there are moments when I'm like, Jackie Young essentially is running this offense.
Yeah.
And she runs it pretty smoothly.
Who was guarding Jackie for most of the game? Because I feel like they put different people on her and it didn't matter.
Well, I feel like Kalia Copper was on her.
For most of the game?
For a lot of that. I mean, I'm trying to think.
And that's a great defender, right? And she was just scoring at every level.
I mean, I just wonder, because to be clear, Jackie Young told us that her Game 1 performance was not her best. She did not have her legs. And so when the Mercury sort of see that and they guard her well and they come out and they think, okay, like we were able to hold Jackie and Asia pretty all right. And then it's like, well, Jackie Young turns it up to 11, and maybe what worked for them in Game 1 clearly did not work in Game 2.
Yeah, I actually just wrote about that. Dynamic is kind of what makes them scary, I think, is that you had like the Dana and Jewel show Game 1, and then you have kind of the old school Jackie, Asia, Chelsea trio in this game. So yeah, Jackie stood out a ton. In the first half, though, I would like Chelsea was truly like, there were a ton of those like don't blink it or you'll miss it type passes that she had. just slicing it up. And I thought that was huge because I felt like her impact in game one was a little bit quieter.
I think I really also noticed Chelsea's defense, and she's not a great one-on-one perimeter defender, but I like her sort of helping and interrupting things. I mean,
Yeah.
she was a pest for Alissa Thomas inside. I mean, she kept like batting down the ball and just using her hands in really creative and skillful ways to turn the Mercury over.
Do you think that's part of why AT had a tough time today? We'll probably get into that more, but just...
We'll get into that in segment 2,
Yeah.
but I definitely think it didn't help.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely did not help Alissa Thomas when you had, and it wasn't just Chelsea Gray. I think you sort of saw that from Jackie. You saw it from Dana. I mean, they were just batting the ball, and you know, and the extra effort, which we will also talk about as we discuss the Mercury and what went wrong. You know, we also can't not talk about the Aces without talking about A'ja. I mean...
yes, we forgot about her.
Like, you know, she still put up, it was 28,
she
right?
She was there. She was a basket away. But they say post-game that it would have been the first time in the finals that 2 players had 30-point games, but A'ja blew it, in her own words.
But, I mean, statistical records aside,
yes.
A'ja dominated, but I felt like it was a bit different. I mean, Alissa, I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll tell sort of what I was seeing when it came to just A'ja and the decisions that were made to get A'ja her looks.
Yeah, I mean, I even thought it was a quiet 28. Like, I felt like Jackie stood out the most in terms of like whose game was this. I think it was Jackie's game. But yeah, the fact that like A'ja Wilson can just be someone who's kind of like getting her points here and there is like something notable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think for me, it's a point of growth for A'ja. There were multiple possessions where instead of watching her force it inside or just try to, you know, shake off her defender one-on-one, she sort of was like, okay, I'm flowing right into a pass right now. You know, pass it out to Alissa Smith, pass it out to Kirsten Bell. Kirsten Bell made that shot and Alissa Smith didn't matter. I liked the process.
Yeah.
And there was even a 2-player action with A'ja and Jackie where the 2 of them were sort of just batting it back to each other. And I was sort of like, well, that was not a thing last season. It was how the Aces functioned was we need to get A'ja the ball and we need to get it to her in this spot. There wasn't much patience. There wasn't much ball player movement that would occur. And what I saw today was it wasn't just let's give the ball to Jackie and A'ja and let them go. It's let's sort of work through the half court, work through the shot clock. Let's be patient and move the defense around and take advantage of those mismatches when we get them. And I feel like that was something that the Aces really didn't do in 2024 and even in moments in 2023. And so Becky Hammon has talked about playing the right way. And as you all know, I'm a Liberty beat reporter. I've watched the Liberty and their pass-first offense rather than, you know, the Aces that have many more one-on-one type players. We saw some of that one-on-one play today, especially from Jackie, I'd say. But it didn't feel, it felt more in a flow. It felt like there was trust between these players. While in previous situations, I felt like there's been hero ball from this team, and it just felt a bit different. And I credit that to their head coach, Becky Hammon, who has had some really interesting moments with us throughout these finals. If it's her talking about how she has animal comps for players, or this whole thing where she showed the team a video of them as high schoolers before game 1 of the finals. It's been really interesting to sort of understand what her psyche looks like now. I mean, Alissa, how do you feel like Becky has impacted this series so far?
Well, I don't know about this series, but like the team, like clearly you can see like the love in their eyes, like in press conferences, whether it's like the long-term players, but like even players like Dana Evans, like there's just like such good connection that Becky has with her players, and I'm sure that's like what culture building is about.
Right. And I think for me, why I feel like I've seen sort of this progression in her is because going back to 2022 and 2023, she would just let her stars, run out and run until they were spent. And there wasn't a lot of management of the bench. There weren't a lot of rotations. And so the Aces in 2025, there's a solid group on the bench that comes in and out and have specific roles, and they've bought in to those specific roles. And that comes from your head coach. And so she has adapted to understanding, yes, we have this top heavy team, but we can't keep running them to the ground. There has to be some sort of balance. And I feel like the 2025 Aces have achieved a much better balance. I also feel like she really understands her players emotionally. And we're really able to see that when it came to, I guess, the two very distinct versions of this year's Aces. Obviously, the team at 500 that really struggled, and then the team that went on a winning streak and now is up 2-0 in the WNBA Finals. And she said something to us about how she has really discovered what it means to balance being really hard on her players and loving on them. And I asked her at practice yesterday how she makes that decision of what way she's going to communicate with them, and how she sort of uses her emotional intelligence to know what button to push. And so she said to me, it's based on what she sees on the court. If there's low effort that she sees, she is going to coach them hard and hold them accountable pretty strongly. If it's more of an execution type thing where they were playing hard but just struggled with the game plan, there might be a little bit less harshness and a little bit more constructive and, how do I put it?
Encouraging.
Thank you. Encouraging. I'm losing my words there, but constructive and encouraging rather than being hard and, expressing maybe angry emotions rather than optimistic ones. And so I think she has a much better understanding of balancing that and when there's a time and place to push the different buttons. I mean, I just remember her telling us in 2023, when we asked her about load management and her bench, she would always say, well, the players are my boss. They don't want to come out, so I'm not taking them out. And I have not heard her say that this season. And so there's some growth there. There's also some growth in her emotional intelligence too.
I also wonder if she, like, the growth, if she was a little bit forced into it, just given like what they lost, like losing KP and Alissa and Tiffany, and like obviously they brought in great pieces too, but I also wonder like how much of this new balanced look is just something that they like literally had to do.
Oh, I think you're absolutely correct. But I
still want to give Becky credit though.
Sure, but there's, considerably less high-end talent on this roster than there's been in years past. And you could argue that the Mercury have more cumulative talent. And, when you look at their bench and how the Mercury's bench has really carried them through, you have DeWanna Bonner and Sammy Whitcomb coming off the bench.
Where were they at today?
That's a great question. That's a great question, which we will get into segment 2. But I think it's interesting to sort of watch in real time a coach evolve and still able to be successful when they do.
Yeah, and I think she said something along this lines of that she felt like this particular group needed a little bit more hugging rather than butt kicking. She said that, right?
Yes.
And so it just makes me think about like, what is this particular group teaching her? And like, how are they kind of like bringing stuff out of her that maybe hasn't been there before?
Ooh, that's a question we need to ask when we get to Phoenix.
You get that one in Phoenix.
Okay, that sounds good. So, speaking of Phoenix, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get into what went wrong for the Phoenix Mercury, because clearly a lot did. But stay with us. And we are back. We are here at Michelob Ultra Arena, really breaking down what went on in Game 2 of the 2025 WNBA Finals. I'm Jackie Powell, alongside Alissa Hirsh of the Chicago Sun-Times. So, Alissa, let's dive in to the Phoenix Mercury. What stood out to you about why they really struggled?
They didn't seem to have the juice, as they say. I think like the guy sitting next to us was talking about how impatient they looked on offense. We were talking about in segment 1, like how patient the Aces were. I don't think you saw a ton of that from the Mercury today. I think it was, either like stagnant offense, rush shots. I think Nate Tibbetts talked post-game about not getting the ball reversed. That's, when you're not getting the ball reversed, that's tough. And defensively, they had no answer for really anything that the Aces were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, we said in segment 1 that Kalia Copper, one of the better perimeter defenders in this league, just did not have a lot of answer for Jackie Young. And so, but I think going back to what Nate Tibbetts had to say, he wasn't happy with their intentionality when it came to mismatches. And I think that's something that the Aces have done really well in both of the games of this series. If that meant trying to exploit DeWanna Bonner off the dribble, where Dane Evans was just able to just go, or if it meant exploiting Sammy Whitcomb and her defensive limitations, especially after she sort of hyperextended her knee. And we just didn't see any of that on the Mercury side. I mean, Satu Sabali is a much longer and larger player than some of the Aces guards, and she really struggled today. You talk about rushing shots. That's sort of, I find, to be one of her main bugaboos. That's something that I see come up over and over again with her. It's that, there's not a thought to move the ball and try to get an even better look than the one she maybe fires off. And so, but I think in addition to broadly speaking about those things, I think it's worth discussing Alissa Thomas and her stat line and how it looked a little bit quiet today, and maybe why that was. So what was her stat line? It was...
let's see here. She was 5 for 9 for 10 points, and she had 5 assists and 6 rebounds.
So, some would say that is triple-double watch, right? That's like contributing in many different areas. But that's not the Alissa Thomas standard, right?
No, it is not.
Usually you see her with over 10 assists. That's usually a given. And today, No, not really near there. So I asked Nate Tibbetts sort of about what was, I guess, the reaction or why the team wasn't able to establish a good flow, especially with Alissa Thomas in foul trouble. She picked up her 4th foul. I believe it was 7 minutes into the third. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
And then he said, well, once that happened, we had to take her off of Asia. And then as a result, Asia got going again. And so then someone else asked Nate Tibbetts about Alissa Thomas in general. And so he sort of gave me a very cookie cutter answer about Alissa. And someone asked him again about how she was defended and how she was officiated. And he seemed to tell us a little bit more of how he felt about it. So I'm going to play this clip because I want you all to hear it in Nate Tibbetts' words. So here is Nate Tibbetts talking about Alissa Thomas.
Hi, Coach. Nate Johnson, Cronkite News. When talking about like Alissa Thomas and her physicality, at what point do you kind of have to hold her back a little bit to preserve your team's momentum or even her health?
There is no holding back AT. She is who she is. That's why we love her. That's why she's the player that she is. The thing that I just get disappointed in is hearing our officials say that she's hard to officiate because she plays so physical, right? And so, AT is going to be AT. We want her to be AT because she's a hell of a player, and we want her playing with that downhill force.
So obviously that was a very different type of reaction to in the Mercury Lynx series when there were some questions about officiating. Alissa, what is your reaction to his comment there?
I mean, I just think it's funny that like in the Link series, he was like, oh, we're not going to talk about the officiating. We haven't talked about the officiating all playoffs. And, at a certain point, you want to. And I get it. I get it
too. Although, if you take a look at the personal fouls discrepancy, it's not that uneven. If anything, the Mercury shot more free throws. And so, I went through social media a little bit. There were some who thought, you know what? This is how the game should have been called.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating. And you sort of also want to think about, well, why maybe was this change made? We have gotten used to Alissa Thomas being able to really assert her muscle and dominance and sort of move people around and be really physical. So why now are we seeing this change? And so part of me believes it was part of the way Becky Hammon was speaking about Alissa Thomas during practice yesterday. So take a listen to sort of how Becky Hammon characterized why it's difficult to officiate Alissa Thomas. Take a listen.
I think Alissa Thomas is the one player in our league that could probably switch and play football, professional football. I can't really simulate her. We try to get the guys to do stuff, but she's just a different animal in our league. There's nobody like her, and do what she does and how she does it. So, I thought their pick and roll really hurt us in the first half. I thought switching to the zone and making some adjustments at halftime of when it does happen, we did a better job of handling it.
So that inverted pick and roll that they always run, very hard to stop. But what did the Aces do to, I guess, put some pressure on her? I mean, I think Becky Hammon explained it to us that the Aces just sort of clogged her driving lanes a little bit more. So she wasn't able to get that easy penetration. Hi, Kareem.
How dare you?
I'm sure the listeners know Kareem Copeland, the one and only from the Washington Post. He's a friend of the pod and our site as well. But it's just, when Alissa Thomas kept picking up those fouls, I could really see the frustration in her. And I feel like that frustration sort of transferred to her teammates. I mean, I don't know if you picked up when DeWanna Bonner was really frustrated. And mind you, she should have gotten a foul call. I think either it was Chelsea or Jewel who contested a 3, and they sort of like bumped her in the chest a little bit, and nothing was called. They didn't get in her landing space, but they bumped her in the chest. And
I feel like they were mad in game 1 too about the way the game was called. Do you think this game was called that differently than game 1?
Not really.
To me, it really didn't seem that different.
No. I mean, maybe Alissa Thomas didn't pick up 4 fouls.
True, but different situations, right?
No, that's very true. That's very true. So, I mean, from my standpoint, this has felt much more fair. And so, as Nate Tibbetts said, Alissa Thomas hasn't really been in foul trouble throughout these playoffs. And so Alissa Thomas is going to have to adjust to now how she's being called. And that's part of what this officiating conversation has been about, right? It's okay. Once the officials sort of put down the line, they lay down the line, they say, okay, this is what is allowed and this is what isn't, that allows players to adjust. So it's going to be really interesting.
Is it the same crew for the whole series?
My guess is it's not.
Because then that's like, you can adjust one day, but then you can get something different the next day.
Oh, that's true. But I guess the message is
in game.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't think there was great adjustment. I think it was just, there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of, we feel bad for ourselves. There was a lot of bad decision making, low energy.
No juice.
As you said, no juice. So before we shift to talking about what the Mercury need to do to get a win in game 3, Alissa, how did the post-game press conference feel, especially with the players?
I mean, it felt like a classic, this team just lost a finals game and they're really upset about it. I think like Satu has had this, I think ever since she picked up that 5th foul in game 1, I think it was like the 3rd quarter or something, she's just had this really like far away look in her eyes. And I feel like she's kind of like brought that to the press conference where like we can see that like she is thinking about a lot of things. But I don't think she's really wanting to share those things with us. And so that's a little bit of the vibe, us trying to hear how the players are doing and feeling and them wanting to keep that to themselves because I think they're upset.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a really fascinating analysis of Satu's body language. I think it speaks volumes to us. And it was interesting to see Kalia Copper in between a couple of questions where she went like this. She was like, okay, I'm ready. Here we go.
And I will say Ka actually has been the more gregarious one in terms of being like, I have to give them something. And like she's talked a lot about her overall leadership and how that's evolved in the last couple years, like while she's been in Phoenix. And I do think part of that is actually like how she carries herself toward the media. And like, even in that moment, just knowing like, all right, Satu's not going to say anything. And so I am going to be here to kind of just like give them some basics. And I think like the basics that we took from them are like, they were really not satisfied with how they played, especially defensively for both games, and that they need to turn that around going home.
Yeah, there was talk about them not really playing together, and that's something that comes up when there's frustration. When there's frustration, players don't always communicate, and they're on an island, And I think we sort of saw that on the court from the Mercury. But, also Clea Copper, she had the best game out of the entire Big Three. I mean, she sort
Totally.
of...
There were moments where she took over the game.
And I just wonder, since the Aces don't really have... I mean, they have Jackie Young, but as we know, Jackie Young's played.
Like who to guard Ka?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, should they be leaning into Clea Copper a bit more? Because she has had the best series so far.
Yeah, I do. They probably should, but I also think they need to play together. I don't know that they can just pick someone to fix it. I think they do need to get back to the togetherness. I'm sure they feel that way as well.
Oh, for sure. But I guess I just wonder,
what to exploit right now.
Yes. And I feel like it may need to start with her.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, if I was picking someone, I would pick Ka.
So in this vein of looking toward the future and looking toward what the Mercury really need to do to get themselves out of this 2-0 hole. We talked about using Clea Copper and what that may look like. What else does Phoenix have to do to get out of this rut?
I mean, I do think the energy thing is real. It didn't seem like they played with a ton of togetherness and energy. And I would hope for them that their home court advantage gives them some of that. I'm sort of expecting it to. Other things, we were talking a little bit before about Sammy Whitcomb, and you were talking about how she hyperextended her knee. I don't know the update. Maybe you can share. I had kind of not been totally on the loop of what's going on with her, but
she doesn't really want to say. But
okay.
But as we know, we see that sleeve on her leg.
Yeah,
she's not 100%.
Okay.
She's playing, but she's not 100%. Also, Satu Sabali, it looked like she injured her ankle at the end of that as well.
For sure. But I mean, if Sammy can give more, I just feel like she was such a bright spot of the Link series,
and the Liberty one,
right? In the clutch, and not just the big threes, but just her presence, and the hustle plays that she makes, and just really being felt. And today, I didn't even know how many minutes she had played. I had to look at the box score. It wasn't the same, and so maybe it is the knee or whatever. But if they could get some Sammy back, that I think that would help them.
And Dewana was really quiet too.
It's the whole bench, but I guess Sammy was just who really stood out from the previous series.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, their bench has a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been in the Aces' favor this series, right? They're getting scoring punch from the bench. So
yeah, Sammy Whitcomb is vital in the inverted pick and roll that the Mercury run.
Yeah.
And because the Aces have guards that are a little stronger and can withstand Alissa Thomas, Jackie Young was guarding Alissa Thomas for multiple possessions tonight or this afternoon. And so in the Lynx and Liberty series, the Lynx, there wasn't personnel to really be able to defend that well. With the Liberty, they had the personnel, but did not make the proper adjustments to address that. And so, yeah, Sammy is a huge part of making that play, which they run so much and which works so well, work. For me, I also would like to see Natasha Mack guard Asia Wilson.
Yeah. My dad texted me, you can't win without a center in this league. And I think point being such dominant play from people like Asia, you have to have a counter to it.
And it's I understand you want to put Alissa Thomas because she's as good of a defender as she is. The two best players on both teams opposing each other. I understand that. But I think you got to think about Alissa Thomas's bandwidth and how can you relieve her a little bit so she can do what she does offensively. There was a moment earlier this season when she looked absolutely lost guarding Emma Meesman during the regular season. And I was like, I thought Alissa Thomas was like this all defensive caliber player. What's going on here? And so, when you move her to essentially a point guard, that's sort of going to change her bandwidth, what she's able to do defensively. And so I just wonder, is it time for AT to be more of a help defender? And you can have Natasha Mack mainly guarding Asia. My guess is Nate Tibbetts is going to make some sort of change because what has been going on has not been working. But anyway, that is it for us. I will see you on Wednesday after Game 3. The Aces have taken a commanding series lead and will head to Phoenix for a Game 3 up 2-0 over the Mercury. This has been Jackie Powell and
Alissa Hirsh.
And we are signing off.